Hey everyone, it's RedditBot here again, and today, the trending posts we will be looking at is: I snooped on my husband's phone and found out he is bi. We have been married for 5 years. My husband has different message tones for all his closest friends. Over the last weeks, he has been texting a female friend. I think she got a text from her through the day and it was way above normal that I noticed it. He has also been very protective of his phone. He always used to leave it unlocked, would lend it to me if I wanted to do a quick search, but he has been with his phone. He never locks his phone and he always takes it with him wherever he goes. He had told me that at the start of their friendship, 12 years ago, he had feelings for her, but it was fleeting and they have a really strong friendship. I was feeling jealous and betrayed. I have been cheated on before and I still am a bit insecure about this. 2 days ago, he had left his phone unlocked. I opened his messenger and his last message was, "I am good at hiding it. I should have just left the phone at the table and minded my own business," but that text confirmed all my fears, and I couldn't stop myself from opening it to read. I regret it. He wanted to come out but was scared. He was scared of my reaction. He was scared that I would not find him attractive anymore and that we would have to get a divorce. He thought it was not worth coming out. I came to my senses and I kept his phone back on the table. My head is spinning a little. What do I do now? Should I tell him that I know and that it is okay? I feel terrible for hiding things from him. I want to apologize to him for snooping on his phone. I also feel a bit sad that he was more comfortable trusting her than trusting me, which is not very mature on my part. Would it be better if I tell him? I want to do what would make him happy, but I can't just ask him that. TLDR, I thought my husband was cheating. He was not. He is bi and wanted to stay in the closet, but now I know and I am freaking out how to deal with this. Now guys, let's take a look at some comments. It seems that most people are saying you should tell him, but I'm in the other camp. He needs to come out and share this information on his own timeline. Forcing him before he is ready can be really damaging. You can help him by having conversations or dropping hints that aren't specifically about him that indicate you are okay with this development in your relationship. But let him broach the subject when he is ready. The only partially concerning thing here is that he felt he could confide in his friend before you, but that doesn't seem too worrisome to me. I would probably confide in a friend before telling my partner something like this if I knew there could be negative outcomes from this discussion. She is being his sounding board while he works it out, and it might hurt that he didn't come to you, but he also has a lot more to risk by discussing this with you. At some point you guys will need to talk about it, and you will need to reassure and remind him that you're his wife and should be the person he talks to first. But considering the specific nature of this, it doesn't seem unreasonable that he would seek out an outside voice. Telling him you snooped forces the conversation to occur, which he might not be ready to have. If it were me, I would be more angry about that than the fact that you snooped in the first place. Just something to consider. Best of luck. I think you should tell him what you saw. If it doesn't change how you feel about him, I'd tell him that too. Personally, I wouldn't see him talking to his friend first as a problem because he was scared and has so much more to lose if you reacted poorly than if his friend did. I'd be hurt he decided to hide it because it would feel like he didn't think I would still love him, and I would hate for my partner to have to carry that weight around. But again, I can kind of understand. Biphobia and bi erasure are problems, especially for men. Even in the comments here, someone is suggesting asking if he's only married to you because you are a good beard to hide him actually being gay. If he's from a conservative background, he's probably got messages like that his entire life, and it's made it take longer for him to understand his sexuality. When you do tell him, I wouldn't force a conversation if he's not ready. Hey, I sensed something was off and was feeling insecure about our relationship, so I looked at your phone. I saw what you said about being bisexual and scared to tell me. I wanted you to know that it doesn't change how I feel about you or our marriage. I'm a bit hurt you felt like you couldn't talk to me about it, but I understand how scared you must have been about losing this relationship, because that same type of fear is what made me look at your messages. You don't have to talk to me about it now, but I want you to know that if and when you do feel ready to tell me about it, I will be ready to listen. I love you. Or something like that would probably help both of you feel much better. I would add an apology for snooping to this conversation. My brain totally glitched and left that out. Yes, she should definitely apologize for snooping instead of addressing her concerns to him directly. Hey, I sensed something was off and was feeling insecure about our relationship, so I looked at your phone. I think when she mentions this, it might be a good idea to mention that she had noticed that a particular ringtone was going off a lot more than usual, and that is partly why the insecure feelings came up. It might make it easier for him to understand where she was coming from. As a bi woman who's in a relationship with a bi man, I advise that you wait. If you tell him you know, then you're forcing him to come out, and that's fudged up. If you love him, you will wait for him to come out to you. Please don't take it personally. Everyone's coming out is for different reasons. He probably needed someone to give him an extra "you'll be okay, you got this" encouragement before making the plunge. I'm sure you've discussed things with friends about what to say or do, and he has done the same. But please, I am begging you, let him come to you. As a bi person, I want to echo the other commenters saying to wait and let him come out to you. See if you can find ways to show your acceptance of LGBTQ people at random times, like during a TV show with queer characters. Try not to be too obvious about it. When I was deathly afraid to come out to family or friends, it helped me immensely to hear them randomly show their acceptance of LGBTQ people. I'm sure he seems this is a shameful part of him, and because he loves you very much he's very fearful of your reaction because it means that much to him. He doesn't want to risk losing you. I would tell him that you snooped, apologize for it, and then tell him that you are okay with it. It's a tough situation, and I'm not sure that someone who knows nothing about you or your marriage could know what's the best thing to do while only knowing the information in your post. Having said that, I feel that a good rule of thumb is that honesty is always the best course, and that if you are honest and sincerely apologize and this causes you to lose your marriage anyway, then it was on crumbling ground in the first place. I know, it's easy to say that from the cheap seats, but I do think it's true. I think it's also true that snooping and then have him finding out much later, or you keeping it hidden for a long time then telling him, makes the transgression worse. You would then have two things you shouldn't have done rather than one. While you do owe him very sincere apologies and explanations for what you did, I hope you will forgive yourself, and he you, as you were in a difficult situation. For someone who has been cheated on, with a current partner behaving furtively, the impulse to snoop would be overwhelming, and very hard to resist. At the same time, his reluctance to come out to you is very understandable, and a close and longtime friend is exactly the person to whom someone in his situation would want to confide and work through his feelings. Not that I am validating his actions, he should have come to you, just saying that it's easy to understand why he did this. The circumstances created a situation in which each of you found it very challenging to trust the other. I hope you will both keep these things in mind as you move forward. If you tell him, I would urge you to be ready for an emotional response from him that may be tough to endure, but will pass, at least in its intensity. If someone has a lot of emotions bottled up, then something like this happens where he can see himself as the victim. He may vent frustration that comes from other sources, using this as justification, without clear awareness that he's doing so. He may also use this to divert attention from the fact that he kept information from you that, as his partner, you arguably had a right to know. I would suggest that you try to avoid being overly defensive, as you did do something wrong, but not accept the premise that you are the only one who should have acted differently. If you tell him, be prepared for what might be a challenging time. At the same time, he might be so relieved that your understanding of his being bi that he may get past the snooping. It's hard for anyone, probably even you, to know how he'll react. One way to put this is that I think that telling his is the least bad choice. If you say nothing, then you both will be sitting on secrets that could blow up the relationship if disclosed in the wrong way, which is a really uncomfortable way to be in a relationship. But of course, in the end, you have to decide. I feel for you, and wish you well. Do not tell him. Look, coming out is a delicate thing. He's not cheating on you. He loves you. Don't force him to come out. Just be there for him when he's ready. Snooping was wrong and you shouldn't have done it. Considering they've been cheated on before, the insecurity they must have felt when they saw a message saying I'm good at hiding it is reasonable enough to want to snoop, don't you think? I'm of the opinion that if you feel paranoid enough to snoop on your partner's phone, the relationship is already over. It's not as fancy or intrusive as, say, hacking your partner's email account, but it's the same principle. And I think a lot of people on this sub forget that spousal spying is an actual crime in many jurisdictions. Being cheated on isn't an excuse, it just shows that she's allowing her traumas and insecurities to affect her marriage. Which is pretty shitty. Is a grown-ass woman in marriage. How much you want to bet she never once bothered to communicate with her husband about his cagey behavior with his phone and how it makes her feel? Phone snooping is for teenagers. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you invade someone's privacy. You done the crime, now do the time by it, honest about it. Just say, I was insecure and went through your meds and saw that you're afraid to come out to me. Do not tell him. This is his moment, don't take it from him. You need to let him tell you in his own time. Tell him how much you love him. Show him how much you care, but don't just dump information on him that you know because he isn't ready. How much help this is, but a bit on my experience from your husband's side of this. My advice is to let him come out on his own when he decides to. In the meantime, small shows of general support for LGBT people and issues might help him see that you'll be okay with it, as long as they're not overly obviously implying that you know. Forcing the topic on him could be damaging and traumatic. I offered a little bit in a response, but to put it here as well, I was scared shitless to come out to my husband, even though I knew he'd be accepting. I had conversations with a friend first to work out my feelings and try to figure out how to tell him. So many people seem generally supportive until it comes to their own spouse or family. There's always a fear that someone won't react the way you think they will. There are many stereotypes people seem to believe about bisexuals being unfaithful or dissatisfied with monogamy. Edited to add, and some spouses in your position struggle with insecurity and feeling like the other person might leave them because of dissatisfaction with monogamy, or not being able to give them everything they might want, enough to affect the relationship. His fear that you'll want a divorce someday is unfortunately not unfounded. In the end, I had to tell him because hiding it was eating me alive. I was so nervous and scared and serious, I probably came off like I was going to tell him I'm dying. Only for his reaction to be something like, "Okay. You're my wife and I love you." And I'm not surprised. I can't describe the relief after that. Several months later I came out to him as non-binary. That was even scarier. I texted him an essay about that because I couldn't even get the words out. Anyway, all this to say that I had conversations while I was working through my feelings too. I was definitely off for several weeks. My husband expressed after I came out that he knew something was up and was waiting for me to tell him. I'm grateful that he waited until I was ready, and I'm extremely glad that I knew already how he felt about other members of the LGBT community. That helped me decide that risk in coming out to him was pretty low. But I was still scared. The question is, are you truly okay with him being bi? If so, okay. If not, this is a much bigger issue. I could understand being wary after being cheated on, but that's your issue to deal with. You did look at his phone. I'd own up to that and have the conversation. Snooping is never justified. That was a huge betrayal of trust. You should tell him, but be ready to accept the consequences. This is the result of you both failing to communicate with each other. You could have told him your fears and he could have acted less shady. Cat's out of the bag. Might as well tell him you know and that it changed nothing, but he may lose complete trust in you for snooping. You're married, his phone is your phone and vice versa. As far as him being bi, whatever. As long as he's not cheating, I see no issue with it. And guys, that's where we ended today. Comment below, and remember to subscribe for more educative, entertaining content like this. As you already know, it's Reddit Bot. See you later.